I don't care what it is. You have to do it. I beg you, because you cannot hold everything for all people, and you cannot give freely of yourself when you are an empty vessel. So I've done 15 sessions in the egg, and I did 5 of those sessions up at the center in Manchester, New Hampshire with Luann Lance before our egg was delivered and assembled in August of 2023. My first sessions with Luann were addressing long COVID. I had a very, very serious case of the Delta variant of COVID in August of 2021. I have never been that sick in my entire life. I had pretty much every symptom of COVID except for like the lack of oxygen and inability to breathe. And in a lot of the research energetically about the impact of COVID, a lot of it is tied to self-love. And so Luann and I sort of worked through those 5 sessions, approaching my long COVID symptoms with that element of how can I return back to myself and bring back that self-love. And that goes all the way back to the beginning, back to childhood, doesn't it? So once we had our egg installed, and I was feeling better, it did help relieve a lot of the things that I was experiencing, a lot of liver imbalances, and liver is tied to anger, and I was angry during COVID. I was so angry at the shutdowns. I was angry at the masks. I was angry at what was taken away from my son during his high school years, all the things that he lost out on, the college application process. I'm still angry about it. Maybe I need to get back in the egg and work with my liver some more, but yeah. So COVID was truly transformative for me, and that was my first foray into exploring alternative healing with the egg. I'd done other modalities, and from there I started working on some confidence things, so I used a few of those protocols, and then I linked up with a naturopath in July of 2023. And so some of my lab work came back, and I had signs of candida, which is a fungal infection, and it can either be confined to your mouth or your genitals, or it can be like full-blown systemic candida in your digestive system. And my belief was that that's where it was confined in my digestive system, and so I did the protocol for candida. And when I went back in November and had my labs redone, it was gone, completely gone, which is crazy. But I have the labs to prove it, so there you go. I spent 7 years from 2017 to the end of 2023 as a primary caregiver for my dad, who had Alzheimer's. And so caregiving is, it is very, very hard physically, emotionally, mentally, and even spiritually, especially when you're a caregiver for a parent. And you're a caregiver for a parent that no longer has cognitive function that is intact, and having to basically cradle your parent as if they're a child. And especially when you were the child of a parent who was a workaholic, great person, amazing guy, love him, but not always present, right? So there's maybe a little bit of that like neglect element. And so you have to unpack those feelings like, okay, I need to get over that. Maybe I felt neglected as a child, but there's this person and he is vulnerable before me and he needs me. And so you give with compassion and love. Always give with compassion and love. But that depletes you. really does. Caregivers have to make time for self-care. And I don't care what that is. I don't care if it's going outside for 30 minutes and taking a walk, standing in your backyard with your naked feet in the earth, going to the beach, getting a massage, I don't care what it is. You have to do it. I beg you, because you cannot hold everything for all people, and you cannot give freely of yourself when you are an empty vessel. And caregiving is so severely depleting. There are moments of joy in it, but by and large, when you get to the end of the day, you are so exhausted and so broken, and you literally feel like you can't take another step forward. And so I urge you, if you're a caregiver, go have Reiki. Come to the egg. I'll take such exceptional care of you, I promise. Do all the things. Have somebody come in and help you for an hour. A neighbor, a friend, another family member, ask for help. That was the hardest thing for me, asking for help. And if I had done that, I think I would have come out on the other side in a healthier place. Yeah. I think too many people in the spiritual community want to put the darkness in a box and pretend it doesn't exist, and then it's all sunshine and lollipops and rainbows. But the ugly is a part of all of us too. Every single one of us, we've all felt jealousy, envy, anger, frustration, rage, resentment, wanting to overpower somebody, all of those things that we call negative, but I don't call any of it negative. I mean, in the moment when you're like fumbling around for a term, maybe you'll bandy that word about, but for me, energetically, it isn't negative. We are all human, and there is a massive spectrum of emotions that we all experience, and they're all valid. We all have a right to feel all of it. Unfortunately, a lot of the generations prior to us wanted to put them in a box and wanted to pretend that they didn't exist. Or they wanted to feel certain ones of them fully, but not all of the spectrum of emotions. Like if you think of the silent generation, who were amazing, my grandparents, their work ethic was extraordinary. They were very hardy, resilient, tough people. They lived through the Depression and severe economic hardship, but they weren't necessarily warm and fuzzy people. And they weren't about, holding space for people's emotions. You just suck it up and keep going, kind of a dynamic. The boomers after them, who they wanted to feel all the pleasure, all the joy. There was a revolution in music and, like the sexual revolution and all of that. And all of that is terrific. That's great. It's like at least acknowledging part of what it is to be human, but not all of what it is to be human. And then my generation, Gen X, and I love talking about generational cohort. We're the first generation of latchkey kids. We're like feral cats, and we basically raised ourselves because our parents were never home. And there's a lot to be said of that, because we looked at our grandparents for our resilience. And I think we have a little bit of a struggle with our parents. My parents were boomers, and so they lived through the 60s and all of the free love and all of that. I think there's a lot of apathy in my generation, a lot of whatever kind of attitude. But I also think we're the first generation to kind of say, wait a minute, there's a better way. I deserve more. I deserve to feel more from my parents. And if they're not going to give it to me, I have to give it to myself. I've got to kind of go back to my childhood and say, you know what, maybe you weren't like super loved and your parents weren't super affectionate. You can give that to yourself. You can use the egg to help you with that. not to skip over millennials, but my son is Gen Z. They are amazingly open-minded to all of this sort of woo-woo spiritual stuff. They're very intellectually curious, I feel. All of the ones that I know in our sphere of influence. Brilliant kids, super open-minded. They don't shun anybody for any reason except maybe boomers, and I think we collectively dislike boomers. Sorry, boomers. Sorry, Mom. This is a huge opportunity, I think. We can have a revolution of our own by encouraging people to make self-care a priority. And we have so many tools here that can help you with that. So we have massage. We have Sarah Odenmar is our massage therapist, and she does relaxation techniques, gentle cupping, assisted stretching, and hot stones. And any massage with her is going to have you melt into the table. And then we have Lynn O'Neill Clark, our Reiki master, who does Reiki sessions with crystals and integrated energy therapy. And we also have the Harmonic Egg and an herbal apothecary, which has a wide range of products, plant-based solutions to anything from digestive concerns to deep relaxation with some wonderful powders and teas that help with that.